Redditors who grew up filthy rich. What did you think was normal till you learned otherwise? Honestly, it was the little things. I knew we had nicer cars than average, a bigger house, went on more trips, etc. But I thought everyone's refrigerators had wood-paneled cabinet doors, for example. We had a Sub-Zero built-in refrigerator and freezer. The first time I saw a metal fridge, I thought it was weird, and I thought it was even weirder that the fridge and freezer were combined. But then I got really jealous because you could put magnets on it. I also thought everyone had a central vacuum system where you can sweep dirt into a little hole under the cabinets by the floor, and it sucks it up. We had these little holes all over in every room, stuff like that. Probably a weird example, but growing up all of our dishes were made of fine china, Waterford glassware, etc. And I just thought that's what plates and stuff were made of because we didn't have anything else. Then one time I went to a friend's house for dinner, and we ate on colored plastic plates and non-matching plastic cups. I just thought that was the weirdest thing ever and asked why we were eating with camping dishes. I thought everyone got to eat dinner quite often with the president. I always thought the president has dinner at random houses until I learned otherwise when I finally joined regular school. I was homeschooled till I was age 9 and no kid believed my dinner story. Dad was ambassador of Kenya to Saudi Arabia. Kidnapping. Whenever we traveled there were guards. I was trained in what to do if it happened. We had insurance policies against it. When I dated a middle-class suburbanite and talked about it, she thought I was paranoid, but that was a thing. And here is where the gap between our two worlds closes. I grew up poor, but I had to worry about kidnapping too. Growing up, I had to be on the lookout for my biological father, who owed about $17,000 in child support. At the time, he never paid a cent. But he was a criminal, on the loose and wanted in my home state. Because no one knew where he was, he could easily swoop in at any time and disappear his little child support debt. Me, because you can't collect child support on a dead child. So as a kid, I had to give my father's description to my friends, babysitters, teachers, and pretty much explain to everyone to be on the lookout for this villain who might be coming to snatch me away. I had to memorize code phrases in the event that a stranger approached me on my mother's behalf. It was generally a pretty awful childhood, and I'm amazed I didn't grow up to be chronically paranoid. Only middle class, but I realized I was globally rich when in the Marines. Filipino folks were taking our trash to fix their roofs. I remember going to India and giving about 10 rupees, roughly 10 pence or 15 cents, to a homeless woman. She was basically in tears. It's as if I saved her life or something. That was a big wake-up call. Having a helper in your house doing everything housework related. I spent my late teens and early 20s butlering for a very, very wealthy, not billionaires, but not far-off family. They had 2 school-age kids that I would drop off in the morning, the older 7. Maybe 80. The time of the 2 was amazed to learn that I didn't have a holiday home to go to when I took time off. I feel bad having said this while joining a friend on a road trip up into the mountains at his brother's house. There was slow as balls internet at the house we were going to, and the connection dropped frequently. I didn't have my car with me since I was on a road trip with someone else at the time. This was also before personal Wi-Fi was a thing, and my cell phone at the time was a state-of-the-art brick phone from Nokia, thus no hotspot. If there's any way I could borrow a car to hop into town for internet tomorrow, that would be awesome. Friend. Well, my brother uses his car every day, and I'm using mine to go to that event we talked about. That's fine. Is it okay if I just use his extra car? Awkward silence. Friend, he just has that one car. Growing up, I thought apartment buildings were only for college students. I didn't know families lived in them. John Travolta told a cute story about his daughter once. They had to fly commercial once, and she was shocked, incredulous, and asked, "And Daddy, who are all these people on our plane?" She thought everyone had their own 757. I wasn't the one who was filthy rich, but I went to a fancy private school from the 9th grade to the 12th grade on scholarship. There were tons of kids there who didn't know exactly how rich they were. I remember one girl complaining about how her parents were buying a 3rd house in Florida. but that it cost 1 million less than her main home, which was around 6 million. I have so many stories where the rich kids from my school didn't realize just how rich they were. It was pretty sad. I lived overseas for a year when I was in high school and attended an international school where, though my family was decidedly middle class in the United States, and my dad was being paid several times more to work abroad than he had been at home, I'm fairly certain my family were the least well off in the entire school. None of these kids ever seemed to realize how fabulously wealthy they were. A few examples. Several boys from North Korea. I don't know exactly how high up in the political world of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea you need to be allowed to send your children abroad for an education, but these kids showed up to school in brand new Benzes, for a start. One friend of mine lived in a luxury high-rise in the single richest enclave of the city where I lived. His parents lived on the 16th floor. Each floor was a single unit. He lived on the 17th floor in his own unit. He had his own live-in maid and driver as well. Another friend's parents ran the largest import-export company in the country. He had 2 bodyguards and was driven around in his own armored, bulletproof SUV. Windows were too thick and didn't roll down. I attended his birthday party, which was on his dad's 180-foot super yacht. It was not uncommon for my friends to spend 3-day weekends in Bali, the Maldives, or wherever their vacation home happened to be. I'm still friends with several of them through social media, and the most frequent post I see from several of them is off to for the week, then on to Somb, and those locations almost always being on 3 separate continents. My family was broke as hell, but my mom was and still is a teacher at this really nice private school, which was the only reason my brother and I could attend. Everyone's parents were doctors and lawyers. You get the idea, but brother and I were being raised by a single mom who had just relocated. We were living in a trailer park in the middle of nowhere for the cheap-ass rent. We didn't always know when the next meal was coming. One day, during lunch, the kids noticed that all I have is a peanut butter sandwich and a tiny bag of pretzels. One dude says, "Wow, you must really not be hungry." Since I was 6 and just as clueless to any other lifestyle as he was, I just straight up told him, "We don't have any more food." I had to explain it a couple of times before he realized. Lunch bro sheepishly asks if I would like some of his food. Orange and baggie of Cheetos were the start of a now 20-year-long friendship. I thought until the start of high school that a $100 bottle of wine was cheap. Expensive ones are several thousands after all. At the end of the year, we decided to offer our retiring teacher a bottle of wine, and he said, "Don't buy a $100 bottle." I made a joke about how picky he was and made a fool of myself. My roommate in college would order a catered meal for every dinner. Like he'd have a restaurant bring so much takeout that they'd bring it in those aluminum trays and heaters underneath, and a server would stick around to dish out the food and clean up afterwards. It took us a couple months to realize that he thought this was totally normal behavior and was confused why we made such a big deal about it. He saw it as kind of a splurge, but not crazy out of the ordinary, until I just pointedly asked Kevin, the server, who else he did this for in the entire city we were living in. Just him. My roommate just looked shocked. The interesting thing was the fallout. This was only part of the reality check that college dealt my roommate. He really was raised to think catered meals and drivers and massive wardrobes were the norm, and he felt deceived. That's how his parents lived. That's how his friends lived. He'd never known anyone who didn't live that way. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but he really did feel like his whole life was a lie, and he felt really dumb for not seeing it before. So he really swung the other direction. He rejected his parents' help, started working on his own, got crazy tight about finances, and became honestly annoying about money. But it was a learning curve, so we were patient. It was inspiring to watch someone take control of their life. We never have sympathy for the wealthy, but it was a painful growing experience for him, and I was proud. My boyfriend's family was pretty poor compared to mine, so when we discuss our childhoods, we notice some pretty glaring differences. For example, he was telling me recently about how they would leave the kitchen stove on and open in his house for the heat in winter. No central heating air, something I completely took for granted as a kid. I grew up dirt poor, and when I met my husband was dirt poor myself. He came for an upper-middle-class family where everyone got college paid and they always had new things. My husband has never been unemployed and doesn't understand how someone can be unemployed. I remind him all of the time that when he met me, I was unemployed. Yeah, but you just had some shitty things happen to you, that's all. Honey, that's how it works. Complaints about airport security. We never got around to owning a plane, but most of our family friends who we would vacation with would share theirs with us. Basically, you show up at the local airport and hop right on. If we ever took a commercial jet, we had a prepaid SAR pre-check that let us zip through our own security line. I never understood why people would say they planned on heading to the airport 2 hours before their flight. My mom never worked. Instead, she stayed at home and raised each one of her 4 sons in succession. So there was a point when I was shocked to learn that other kids' moms had jobs and didn't just play them, watch them take them on excursions every day. Flip side. Growing up in the projects, I thought that people that lived in trailer parks were rich because they had their own house, among many other odd beliefs. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Let me know in the comments if you've had similar stories. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out new super interesting videos, and I also suggest you to watch our other videos.